The Thundering Pulse in Genshin Impact does look like an incredible weapon, and yeah, it is an incredible weapon, but there are some things you guys need to think about before you pull that Primo Gem, wall it out, and dump it all for this weapon, guys. We're going over why you might not want to pull for the Thundering Pulse today. Even though it is a fantastic weapon, it does have some caveats that you really need to think about before you spend all those hard-earned gems. Now, let's talk about the Thundering Pulse. It's a fantastic weapon at level 90, 608 base attack. That is pretty much the baseline for a level 50 weapon. Some of them have higher 5-star stats than that does, but this also comes with 66 crit damage, which is an amazing stat line for you guys there. On top of that, the special ability, even at Refinement Rank 1, baseline just gives you 20% attack. And that's an amazing thing to have access to. Now, here's where you really need to think about who you're going to use this weapon on. So this weapon here has the Thunder Emblem stacks. There's 3 different stacks and 3 different ways to obtain these stacks. The first one is from doing a normal attack damage. Very easy to do. That stack lasts 5 seconds, so you need to be constantly normal attacking. And we have one stack that's going to give you 12% damage. The second stack is using an elemental skill, which is also pretty easy for pretty much any character in the game to do. And that one also lasts 10 seconds. And at 2 stacks of the Thunder Emblem, you get 24% normal attack damage. The final one is when your energy is less than 100%. And this will give you all 3 stacks. We have all 3 of these criteria met, and that'll give you 40% normal attack damage increase. That sounds awesome, right? This bow is obviously made for Yoimiya, and this is where you really need to think about who you're using this bow on. So if we break this down, how many of the bow characters that we have in Genshin Impact really want to utilize this? And remember, this is a normal attack focused bow. So far in the game, we already have one character that kind of wants to utilize this thing. That's going to be Tartaglia, aka Child, right? Normal attack buffs up his E, because his E is technically normal attack damage when he's in melee form. That's fantastic for you there for Child. Obviously, this bow works incredibly well with Yoimiya too, because you're going to pop your E, do a bunch of damage, and then you're always going to use your elemental burst before you swap her out, which is going to reduce your elemental gauge down to 0. So when you swap back in a couple seconds later, you're good to go. You still have under 100% of your elemental burst gauge raring to go there. Child kind of does the same thing as well. You can just pop his elemental burst when he's in bow form, swap back into sword form, do a bunch of damage, or you can do the reverse of that. You can swap into sword form, do a bunch of damage, fill up that elemental burst gauge, and then right before you leave your sword form, pop your sword elemental burst and dip on out. However, look at all these other characters. Does Diana want this bow? No. Does Venti want this bow? No, not really. Does Amber want this bow? No, not really. Now, the only other character you can really utilize this on is like a main DPS official with his like physical damage, which is like a super off meta build. A lot of players really do that build, and it's a really good build when you first get into the game, but it gets crept out later and later and later on because she becomes this weird sort of hybrid character where you need physical damage, but also want elemental damage at the same time. And this bow only does one of those things. It buffs up her normal attacks on top of that. And here's the other couple things about this bow. Yeah, there's some characters that can utilize it right now, right? We have namely Yoimiya, the new character who works with it fantastically, as well as Child, and then maybe you want to do that weird physical official build. But also any other future bow character that comes out needs to meet these explicit criteria. They need to be normal damage focused so they can both get that proc and benefit from that proc. They need to have like a 10-second steroid buff on their elemental skill that's quickly recastable, and it has to line up near perfectly or perfectly in the right scenarios. And it's someone that wants to have their elemental burst cast either right before they go into their DPS form or right after they go after their DPS form. So that's something that you really have to think about there. And then on top of that as well, guys, there's so many good bows in the game already that boost up your normal attack damage, and they're actually just kind of a little bit right behind this bow. And these are some 4-star bows. Now you have the Yoimiya, which just came out and is craftable. If you R5 this thing, is it worse than the new bow? Yeah. How much worse is it? It's like 15-20% worse than that. Do you need to have the best DPS in the entire game to beat everything in Genshin? No. If you can craft the Yoimiya to good old refinement rank 3, 4, 5 and do a lot of damage, because this thing can get up to 64% normal attack damage, that's going to save you a lot of Primo Gems just for a little bit of a attack loss there. That's maybe another pity on a different weapon or a pity on a different character for just a little bit extra damage for your new R1 bow. Now you also have access to the Rust, which is an amazing 4-star bow as well. This is from the gacha, so you can't craft it, but it goes from 40% all the way up to 80% normal attack damage, which is wild, and it is very strong. This one's closing the gap even more than the Yoimiya was to the Thundering Pulse. So this is a weapon that if you have rust just laying around, in my opinion, you would probably not want to pull in the Thundering Pulse unless you want to just get that little bit of extra damage. You could do nearly the same amount and spend no Primo Gems, nothing. Just spend nothing and just have that 80% damage. Is it worse? Yeah. Is it that much worse where the new Thundering Pulse is insanely good for the character that it's just like triple the damage? It's not that sort of difference. It's just like a 10 to 15% depending on whether you're using the Rust or the Yoimiya bow, and that's going to save you guys a lot of Primo Gems out there. And the same sort of future criteria is met with these bows. Like we talked about the Thundering Pulse, you have to have somebody who wants to do normal attack damage so you can proc one of the stacks and also benefit from the normal attack. Then they also have to be able to utilize their elemental skill in that steroid 10-second window and also want to use their elemental burst at specific times. The Rust and the Yoimiya, especially the Rust, literally no conditions. If you're normal attack focused, you're not really going to be charge attack focused at the same time, right? Look at Ganyu, super charge attack focused, not normal attack focused. Look at Child, very normal attack focused. Look at good old new character Yoimiya, very normal attack focused. And the same thing is with the Yoimiya. It's kind of like reverse of the new bow. This one wants you to have 100% energy. The new bow, Thundering Pulse, wants you to have not 100% energy. So these sort of bows have the same criteria for how good they're going to be on future characters. So think about that before you pull on these new bows, and you could really sort of hedge your bet, save a lot of Primo Gems out there, guys. And yeah, if you want to go and get it regardless of the extra 10%, it's your account. Go have fun, man, for sure. Do whatever it is that you want to do. But for those of you out there who are like super free to play and you're like, I'm going to get this bow, I'm going to get Yoimiya, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. Look at what you might have available to you on your account, right? Look at the Yoimiya. Can you craft like 4 of these things? Have you been playing from day one, never crafted a bow in your life? Do you have a bunch of Rust laying around that you hadn't even thought about? You forgot about them. Use these instead and maybe save it for a future character. Maybe save it for a future weapon that doesn't have so many other weapons that kind of do the same thing, because there's so many powerful bows in Genshin already. Especially, these are just 4-star bows. Do you have the Amos bow laying around? That's also a fantastic weapon for Yoimiya. So is the Skyward Harp. Are they as good as the Thundering Pulse? No, but the Thundering Pulse is not leaps and bounds better than these bows. So keep that in mind, guys. You guys want to see more Genshin Impact stuff, guys? Have fun out there. Hit the subscribe button, like the video. It helps out a ton, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Am I a rapper?